California's Gold is produced in association with KCET Los Angeles and is seen statewide on California Public Television. This series is endorsed by the California Teachers Association, the California School Boards Association, and the California Library Association.
Is it any wonder that the Bay of Avalon, sparkling like some rare jewel in the bright sunshine, inspires so picturesque a greeting?
Oh, give me a ring where the blue waters speak on the shore of its magical isle.
Catalina Island is one of those magical places. We all know it's just 26 miles across the sea, just off our Southern California coast. But when you go there, you might as well be in another world. An island paradise. A paradise with a long and colorful history. Back in the 1930s, a visitor to Catalina could go to the beach. You could walk around the quaint little village of Avalon, take a scenic bus tour. You could golf, you could fish, or you could go horseback riding. You could even sail around in your big yacht. There was lots to do. And at any given time, the island was filled with happy residents and visitors alike. From 1921 to 1951, it was also filled with baseball players. That's right, because during that 30-year period, the Chicago Cubs called Catalina home during spring training. It was the brainchild of William Wrigley of chewing gum fame, who not only owned the island, but the Cubs as well. Wrigley thought it was a swell idea to bring his Cubs to his island, and just about everybody else did too. And today, looking back, it's evident that that 30-year marriage of Catalina and the Cubs was indeed a fine example of California's gold. Which came first for Mr. Wrigley, owning Catalina Island or owning the Chicago Cubs?
Well, they were really almost simultaneously done. He had started purchasing shares in the Cubs back in Chicago in the late teens, and then he bought the island here in 1919. By 1921, he had this idea of this perfect match between the two, and he started bringing the Cubs over here, actually, for spring training.
When you talk about a perfect match, what are you talking about?
Well, it was great because the Cubs loved coming here. They needed a beautiful, warm place to get warmed up and get ready for their season. But at the same time, it gave Wrigley an incredible opportunity to do publicity for the island and get people aware of it and out here.
To promote the island.
Yeah, it was really both at the same time. And they were both his favorite things in life.
They really utilized the island. Wrigley and the managers of the teams, they would have practice every day, but then they would just encourage them to use the island, to hike the mountain trails, to fish, to golf, any kind of calisthenics that they could do. They would encourage them to bring their families to the island. Some players would come and spend a month or so before training even started at the Hotel St. Catherine with their families, and they would start jazz bands and host parties in town for everyone, all the players and their families and the people here in town to enjoy. And just everybody loved the Cubs. They enjoyed the players. They started a love affair with the team, and I think that the people here on the island had a love affair as much as the players had a love affair with the island.
Okay, everybody's talking about this 30-year love affair from 1921 to 1951. But even today, you don't have to spend very long on Catalina Island to discover that among the locals, the Cubs still have a place in their hearts. All right, now you know why we're here. We're here to talk about the Cubs.
Oh, the Cubs, they're our favorites. You can see Cubs stuff all over the place.
Including right over here. Now, come over here just a minute. Now, listen, you came in to get a haircut. You don't mind a little quick diversion, do you?
Help yourself.
Okay.
He's all yours.
Show us what you got here,
This bat here was left here when the Cubs, somebody threw it on behind a locker, and one of my friends happened to pick it up, and he said, Lolo, I got something for you. 1951, a fungal bat that Roy Johnson, the former Cub infield and outfield hitter, used to play with.
So this was an authentic Cubs bat from their last year here.
That's correct, yes.
All right, now what's the other one?
And then this one here, as you know, the last time the Cubs won the World Series, they were beat by the Detroit Tigers.
Uh-huh.
And this is a Louisville Slugger bat that has the names of all the Detroit Tigers that beat the Cubs, unfortunately, in 1945. And I was offered some big money for this bat by a gentleman from Detroit. But I said, if you have it in your little den, who's going to see it? Who's going to enjoy it? So I said, I'm sorry.
Now, you don't keep these bats here in the barbershop.
They hang up here, right here.
Really?
Yes, they do.
So this is kind of like a Cubs shrine here.
That's right. Well, not a shrine. Excuse me.
Be careful with these bats.
That's the way I used to handle the infield ball, too. That's the same way here all the time.
We got pictures.
We were really big Cub fans, of course. I've told you that before. But see, the Cubs would come over here for spring training like in February and March, and they would groom up the field, look really nice and so on and so forth. And when they would leave in March, they would leave us the field. And along with leaving us the field, they would leave us uniforms. So this is why we're Cub fans. This is our high school team. This is not the Cubs.
Oh, these aren't the Cubs. These are the high school.
These are our high school. And as you
wearing
can see,
Cubs uniforms.
Wearing Cubs uniforms. And you can see us. This is me here. And
this is you right here.
This is me, yes. And
where's your brother?
He was shagging balls yet. He was in seventh grade.
Oh,
you know?
okay.
He wasn't on the ball team yet. But that uniform that I had was Hack Wilson. I don't know if you've heard of him, but he was a famous Cub. Hit 56 home runs. He was short, like he was 5'5", and he was a little, weighed 190 pounds, and he wore a size 5 shoe. So you're just a little guy like me.
So was the Catalina High School baseball team known as the Catalina Cubs?
No, they didn't, but we had Cub uniforms. We were just after World War II, we were a poor school, so we didn't have hardly anything except what the Cubs would leave us.
Wow.
And they would leave us baseballs and stuff. But occasionally we would steal a ball from them once in a while, you know.
Now, to this day, even though it's been over 50 years since the Cubs have been here,
right,
is everybody on the island a Cubs fan?
Well, I think you got a few Dodger fans, yeah, but not that many. A lot of Cub fans. Oh, yes, everybody was cheering for the Cubs this year.
You still live and die.
Oh, I do. Oh, absolutely. Oh, of course. Yeah,
and
got my hat.
Just wearing this
no, I wear my hat all the time. Yeah. Especially on big weekends.
Does he really wear the hat all the time?
Well, yeah, you bet. He knows he does. Yeah, he knows he. And we all stick together also on Santa Catalina Island. Remember that. We're old Cubby fans.
Now, this is exciting. We are standing here with Bill White, who was born and raised right here on this island, and you are standing here with what have to be two of your prize possessions. Tell everybody what exactly we're looking at, Bill.
All right. We're looking at the mitt and the ball that was presented to me in 1932 by Stanley Hack, the famous third baseman for the Chicago Cubs.
Now, how did that all come about? Why did you get these?
Well, Stanley was right out of Sacramento, and the manager of that team, Buddy Ryan, came and wrote to my mother and said that this young man, who was only 21 years of age, was coming to Avalon with the Chicago Cubs to try out. And she was a little assigned the fact that she should look after him, keep an eye on him. So anyway,
chaperone him, be his mom away from home.
That's right. So he accepted that, and in the evening you'd come up to our home and be with our family and have dinner, and became a close family friend over the years.
Now that's a wonderful memory to have as a boy, to have something like this happening in your home.
Oh, it was one of the highlights of my life. You need to realize when the Chicago Cubs came here in March of every year, it was like a beginning. It was, the season was opening. We had long winters and they were cold. And when the press and the team and the Wrigleys were in residence, it was a marvelous beginning for our Avalon town.
Now, this happened for 30 years.
30 years, yes.
So this became an honest-to-goodness Avalon Catalina tradition unto itself, didn't it?
Oh, yes, and the the Cubs were really at home here and fit into the community, and the community loved them.
Everywhere you go on Catalina, you run into people with great Chicago Cubs stories. Introduce yourself to everybody.
Scott Lang and Yule.
And you came up and told us that your whole family was connected with the Cubs.
Well, yes, sir, except my mother, but my brother was the bat boy, and my father helped do the lawns, keep the grounds clean. I forget for how many years, because I was just a youngster. I don't want to give away my whole age.
Now, was it a big deal for the locals to be connected in some way with the Cubs when they were here?
Yes, they all got along, and they had their own clubhouse up there at the Catalina Country Club. You should go up and film inside of there.
We're going to go up there.
And that was their clubhouse. And
how big a deal was it for your brother to be the Cubs bat boy during spring training?
He loved it.
We're standing here in a very historic place. We're in the courtyard of the Catalina Country Club. I'm standing with 3 local Catalinians, born and raised here, and tell us why this place is so historic as far as the Cubs are concerned.
This in the corner was the dressing room of the Chicago Cubs. They'd hold spring training at the ballpark, walk up the stairs, change, and usually go out and play 18 holes of golf in the afternoon.
Now, you know what you're talking about because you all observed this over the years, didn't you?
Oh, we did indeed. We shagged balls. We kept score for them when they bowl. We did everything.
So was the whole idea that when these guys came to town, they were in many ways larger than life, weren't they?
Much larger. Bud has a story here. He can tell you.
Which one?
About your sister dating.
My sister dated Eddie Waitkus.
Wait a minute, your sister dated a Cub?
Yes,
Well, I hope he was a well-behaved Cub.
Well, some lady shot him later on in life, but my sister didn't.
We were born Cub fans. Our fathers were Cub fans. I mean, we had no vote in the matter.
But isn't that interesting that there's this little Cub enclave out here on this little island, tracing directly to those 30 years of spring training camps that Mr. Wrigley had out here?
It is indeed.
And you're as hardcore as anybody in Chicago.
Worse. I have a friend who always tells me, an attorney, he says, they got your dad, now they're coming after you.
Another historic place. Introduce yourself to everybody.
I'm Mike Bellinger.
And tell everybody where we are right now, because this is really something here.
Yeah, this used to be the old shower room and the locker room of the Cubs, both this room and down there, and it used to be lowered.
So we're inside the country club building right now.
That's correct.
And this used to be where this was the Cubs locker room.
Right, exactly. There was one room for the showers, and then this room here was with the lockers right behind me where the bathrooms are now, but this was a little shower area that they had with tile, all the Catalina tile.
Obviously, it's been remodeled a lot since those days, but everybody in town knows what used to be here.
Absolutely, yeah. There's some guys here that knew it from day one.
Yeah.
And I think they're still around, too.
Well, when you're here, you really do have a sense of history in this place.
Yeah, you really do. You become a Cub fan, that's for sure. And it brings back a lot of things, especially with all the pictures around here, and makes you really get into it. So.
Well, it still has the feel.
Yes, it does. You can still smell them in here. You can still smell them after a hard game, double headers or something. They still have that smell here for us.
Well, we'll just leave that to your imagination. Now, there's the Wrigley Mansion, still perched up there on the side of the hill where it has been, where it definitely was during the period the Cubs were out here.
Built in 1921.
So Wrigley, he could almost see the playing field.
He could see the playing field from his office. And on the rare occasion that he wasn't down in the stands watching the practice and he was up stuck in his office working, he could watch the players practicing on the field. And there's a story that goes that if he felt that they didn't practice hard enough or weren't working hard enough that day, that he would call down and have them run up the hill to say goodnight.
Up that hill?
Up that hill to say goodnight.
Do you think that's a real story?
I think it's a real story. It sounds like Mr. Wrigley.
Now, it's one thing to hear old Cubby stories from the good citizens of Catalina. It's another to hear them firsthand. And we were able to do just that, because while we were visiting the island, several former Cubs who had trained on Catalina years ago returned for a mini reunion of sorts. And talking with them literally made history come alive. Okay, this is exciting. Our first Chicago Cubs sighting right over here. Introduce yourself to everybody, Bob. This is a high point of our trip so far.
I'm Bob Rush. I was with the Chicago Cubs 48 through 57. So I spring trained 4 years out here on Catalina Island.
You were forced to come out here for spring training 4 years in a row.
Right, and I had to leave the snow of South Bend, Indiana. It was a terrible sacrifice, but I made it.
Now, you've got your daughter here with you today, and I understand this is your first time ever here.
Right.
And this is your first time back here since the last Cubs training camp was here on the island in 1951.
Correct. It's been, what, 52, 53 years, something like that. But it's great to be back.
Well, you're back. How does the old place look to you?
It looks great. To me, it looks just about the same. I know there's been a lot of improvements and everything, but to me, it's just like it was back in 51.
Now, what kind of memories? You were here for 4 years in a row. What kind of memories do you think of when you think of spending that time here on Catalina?
Well, probably one of the things is the boat ride. When I used to come out here, it was about 3.5 hours, and it was fun.
Did you get seasick?
No, I was lucky. The porpoise used to jump in front of the boat, so there was a lot of things going on. It was interesting, and I enjoyed that. Playing golf here in the beautiful scenery, it was really nice. And of course, the playing down in the field and with some interesting players. It was fun.
Now, I know your daughter's standing here, so this may be an inappropriate question, but when you were out here, were you here to play ball, or were you here to play ball and to play?
Well, 48 was my rookie year, so when I came out here, it was all business with me because I wanted to make the ball club. I just gotten out of the Army a couple of years before that, 1 year in the minor leagues, and I was here to make the ball club. And fortunately, I was lucky enough to make it.
So you were concentrating on the game of baseball, but look at this. How do you concentrate with this all around you?
Well, like I say, I was concentrating on baseball, but the island was the frosting on the cake. It was wonderful being here.
Yeah.
And the first, 49 and 50, my wife came out. I got married in the fall of 48, so in 49, it was kind of like a delayed honeymoon, and we both enjoyed it immensely.
I bet you this was a big deal for the wives of the players to come out here with you, wasn't it?
It sure was. I know with my wife it was, and of course, like I say, we both of us grew up in South Bend, Indiana. And
so
to come
in
out
February
here,
and March.
Come out here in February, oh, what a deal.
From the palm-fringed patio of the country club at Catalina Island, the National League champion Chicago Cubs leave for their nearby spring training grounds. Well, it's been a long 5 months since most of the boys have seen a baseball. And as they trot toward the field, they're headed for a strenuous 2 weeks of kink removing and weight reducing to ready them for a new season. Practice starts with a pepper game, a loosening up exercise that restores the feel of bat, ball, and glove after the long winter layoff. It's a lot of fun to get back in the harness, whether rookie or veteran, in this preseason warm-up. Take a look at Dizzy Dean warming up and pitching his first ball of the season. Next, batting practice. And it's a swell feeling to pull out the first long one, even if it is a foul. Rookie pitchers take the mound in early training, while more seasoned players try to separate the horsehide from the stuffing as they slug for imaginary bleachers, while some of the other boys deal them off the hickory to keep the infielders busy. As training progresses, the men start to build up endurance and to click as a well-knit team as they approach season form.
Now, this is exciting. We just welcomed you all off the Catalina Express. You have arrived on Catalina Island. Introduce yourself to everybody.
Well, I'm Eddie Carnett. This is my wife, Mary Lee.
And you were with the Cubs?
Spring training in 1939. It's been 64 years since I've been here.
You're kidding.
Yeah.
So you're back on this island after 60. This is your first time here.
My first time. A little older, too, I must add.
Well, how does it feel to be back?
Well, it's great. We're going to have our 63rd wedding anniversary the last week of this month.
Now, have you heard his stories about being out here?
Some of them, yes.
What do you mean, some of them?
Not all of them.
She doesn't believe them all. I don't eat her anymore.
Well, we're going to be hooking up with you later on in the day out on the old field itself.
Great.
But we just wanted, this was exciting, just watching you all get off the boat.
Well, it was fun.
And being back again.
It's nice to be invited back. It's nice to come back.
Do you feel our old memories kind of rushing down on you right now?
Oh, yeah. Of course, I was just 22 years old, but, you know, if they'd had a designated here back then, I'd probably still be playing.
How do you like this setting for a training camp? Beautiful, isn't it? It sort of belongs to the Cubs, too, since Mr. Wrigley also owns Catalina Island. Thus, the Chicago team has its own park, its own hotel, its own town, its own island, and plenty of California sunshine.
Let's talk about where we are, because this is almost like hallowed ground, isn't it?
Well, it's something, because it's been 64 years since I was here in 39.
Yeah, and this is 53 for me, so he's one of the younger fellows over here doing a super job.
Well, let's talk a little bit about where we are. Come on, fellas. We're walking on this ground, which was literally the field where you practiced.
And a dirt infield here. We had grass and dirt. Yeah, this is dirt running through here. Yeah, it sure was.
I know we used to do wind sprints up and down on the third base side there.
Now, the stands, weren't there stands?
Not real big, but there were stands right here.
And who would sit in those stands?
Well, mostly the good-looking gals over here.
Now, you were supposed to be practicing.
I was singled in. But these people here, they took us in just like we were part of the family.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe it. We come down at night, we bowled together, we talked together, we had fun together, and it was just great.
Is it the kind of thing that the word got out among the players that this was a great way to start off the whole year by spending this time here on this island?
Well, I think so, don't you, Paul?
You bet.
So this was really a unique situation for ball players to have the opportunity to come to Catalina Island in California, palm trees, the Pacific Ocean.
6 inches of snow in Milwaukee. Ice all over, Dust Bowl in Oklahoma, and the kids like we come out here, and man, you were in a different world.
Oh, sure. You bet.
We were just smart enough to know business was all free. We got to come out and eat, sleep, play baseball. What could you have better?
Yeah.
You know.
Where were you pitching? Right? Where were you right?
Well, the mound is.
Has it changed that much?
Well, yeah, yeah. Mound was maybe about right in here, wasn't it? Yeah, because the stands wasn't too big back here, was it, Paul?
So you would have been about right here.
Yeah, I would say pretty cool stood. Yeah, just about, might have been, just about right.
So let's get it. Let's just step out of the way and let's just see you do your thing right here. Yeah, where would you have been? You'd have been standing right here.
Probably about right here.
Uh-huh.
About right here. The pitching and throwing the dugout. About right here. Pretty close. Could have been a couple of feet either way, but I'd say about right here.
And standing right here now?
Right.
Is it just like it was yesterday?
It is, except there's a few things different out here in the back and there. But yeah, basically, the mound's not here except I'm 65 years older. But no, great, and I still love baseball, and I think it's a great thing. But yeah, I can close my eyes and I can see all these guys. Yeah. You know, it's just something that you can't tell anybody until you experience it. There's no way you can do it. I always wanted to play ball all my life. Got a chance to. Didn't make any money when I started. Got $85 a month the first year I played. But it was great, and all I wanted to do is play. I'd played ball for nothing.
Baseball, as it's played in the big leagues, is a science. Each team a smooth-running, complicated machine. But whether it be big league or sandlot, there is nothing scientific or complicated about the biggest thrill in baseball, the home run. The lucky clout that makes baseball the exciting, spectacular game that it is, and has kept it on the top for the past 100 years, as America's #1 sport.
As far as the history of the Cubs and Catalina are concerned, you're originally from Chicago.
Yes.
What percentage of Cub fans do you think know this chapter of Cubs history?
I think almost none of the Cubs fans today know about the history with the Chicago Cubs and Catalina Island. If people don't realize the Wrigley connection to the island, they have no idea that the Cubs would have ever had any connection to our beautiful island.
And there's a ship right out there, tourist port in here today.
Mm-hmm.
What percentage of visitors to this island know the connection with the Cubs?
I would say maybe 1%. And people just really have no idea how rich our history is in other topics as well as if the Cubs were ever here.
Why?
I think that in the past it was publicized, and when they were here, that Wrigley really got the word out that the Cubs were here. But the modern day Cubs fan, it has been over 50 years since they spring trained here. Most people think Mesa, Arizona is the only place that the Cubs have ever trained, but they had a love affair with the island here for 30 years.
No doubt about it, Catalina Island is one of the most picturesque and truly beautiful spots in the world. It's also a place filled with colorful history, and part of that history takes you back to a 30-year love affair between 1921 and 1951, when a baseball team from Chicago came to this island every year for spring training. Spring training that ended up making the Chicago Cubs part of California's gold. There's a great book that's been written about all this entitled The Cubs on Catalina. And this book is filled with pictures and all kinds of first-hand stories. You can order this book on the internet, and it's for sale in many shops and stores on Catalina Island itself. Well, hello, everybody. I'm Huell Hauser, and I sure hope you enjoyed this look back in time to the Chicago Cubs on Catalina Island. It's a classic, and if you'd like to see it again or share it with your family or friends, it's available on video cassette and on DVD. All you have to do is call 1-800-266-5727, and we'll be glad to send it to you right away.